All right, so here we are. We are doing another reaction video. I hope that this one I'm actually really excited about because I'm a healthcare professional and this is about like holistic doctors, holistic healers versus medical professionals. So I really want to see what they have to say. I actually saw this on the like a post, like Dr. Daff was calling medical professionals. And honestly, if I was in the LA area, I would have tried to come to this. But let's see this. I have not watched it, so this is the first time. I think it literally just posted like 7 hours ago or something. So, all right, let's take a look.
Hi, I am Reverend Soulflower, and I am a reproductive health and wellness practitioner.
My name is Jessica. I'm a functional nutritionist and a holistic health practitioner for women's hormonal dysfunction issues.
Love it. My name is Alexis. I'm a holistic healer. Personally, I'm not a medical professional.
My name is Jasmine. I'm a holistic influencer and wellness practitioner.
My name is Nikia.
So just off the bat, so these holistic people seem like they have some background and skill, which is great because you don't want to just, I think maybe just not have any medical professional, but it's good to have someone who has a professional background. And keep in mind, as I'm watching this, I will be coming from a Christian perspective, don't worry. But also I do have that medical professional background. So let's continue.
Doctor of nursing practice, and I specialize in gerontology, nephrology, and urology.
My name is Jordan. I'm a doctor of pharmacy and a wellness advocate and speaker.
My name is Dr. Chinonso Kaga Abisogun. I'm a dermatologist, doctor of skin, hair, and nails.
The body has the power to heal itself. Medicine just gets in the way.
Interesting. It says the body has the power to heal itself. Medicine just gets in the way. Interesting that everyone on the medical side is saying no. Man, I don't know if some of these people are Christian. Let's see, because that plays into it as well. But in the medical field, like we know those things. We know that the body is naturally trying to compensate for things and heal itself and do these things. Sometimes so much that's why we have to sedate and, put, stressors or pressors on to low blood pressure because the body's trying to heal itself in its own natural way. Now it says medicine just gets in the way. That can be, it depends on the situation. So I would have been maybe back and forth with that one I'm not sure where that's going, but let's see.
Okay, so my question is, are you saying that the body cannot heal itself, or are you saying that medicine does not just get in the way?
I'm saying that medicine does not get in the way because there are some things that your body can't heal on its own. You can't heal yourself from a heart attack or a stroke. You need medications and interventions.
I would second that. I think that the body absolutely can heal itself, but sometimes the body needs a little bit of help in order to get to a state, because if you're so ill, so sick, and there's so many comorbid things happening, your system can't do what it needs to get you where it needs to go. So sometimes you need medication to help.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that. However, and she's a doctor of pharmacy, I'm a doctor of pharmacy. I would agree with that. The only thing is, why? Why do you need the medicine? And again, I am a healthcare professional, but I think very uniquely in this because you need the medicine because you're not putting things in your body maybe to get what it needs. For example, and this may not always be the case because we have type 1 diabetes, the insulin is not made appropriately and those type of things. But type 2 diabetes, and for example, is a reason of sugars, fats, things that you're eating, diet, obesity, BMI, all those play into effects. We can't just say, you need medicine. It's like you need other things on top of medicine to help the body. So that's just my thing on that.
I agree. I think two things can be true. Yeah. I think the body can heal itself, and I think medicine can also be helpful. And it really just depends on the circumstances, the situations, like they mentioned. there are emergencies and there are things that maybe take a little bit more time. So it really just depends on lifestyle, comorbidities, genetics. There's so many things that influence it. So I'm a fan of using all of the tools that are available to us.
100% great.
I agree. I think it's well-rounded. I think all things are true, that the body can heal itself. Medicine does sometimes get in the way and cause harm, and medicine sometimes helps and, gets people to heal faster. And obviously, if you broke into your leg or you had a heart attack, you need intervention.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So I think one key thing is what circumstance we're talking about. We're talking about an acute intervention where you need, like, you have a stroke, you need something, a thrombolytic, or are you talking about just a patient who, has a chronic condition? So, I mean, all those things playing a part, but it's a very vague statement. So I think more information and more kind of where is the structure that we're trying to agree and disagree on or find common ground on would be helpful.
to say I would be interested to hear from other professionals as well, if there are any medical professionals that believe that you have to have medicine for everything. So it's actually really encouraging to hear all three of you understanding that the body can heal itself, But you're right. If I fall down the stairs and I break my legs, I'm begging someone to take me to the hospital.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to understand where things are placed. But I feel like so much of the industry is just Western.
Yeah.
And that's where, especially women, we're a panel of women, a lot of people can get into trouble because there's this crutch. I need medicine for every single thing, but it's nice to hear that you guys believe that.
Yeah. And I know specializing in like women's health and also having stage 4 endometriosis too, we're not taught about diet. We're not taught about, the nervous system. We're not taught about stress, which is a huge factor in that, especially the diet. I mean, I can't say how many times doctors told me to change my diet, but then that was it.
Yeah.
And just having a little more direction. And then, finding out that, especially with like endometriosis, is actually a biounavailable copper toxicity and a bile and liver blockage. And so the first thing I was offered was the copper IUD.
Oh my
So which would add insult to injury. It's depleted zinc. So I think running more tests like the Dutch and the HTMA and kind of integrating both. I actually worked in Western Medical for 20 years. So I worked in a time where they did use holistic sometimes. I know I worked at Garden Grove Hospital many years ago, like 2001, and they used 90,000 BTU cayenne pepper to stop heart attacks. So I've seen kind of both as well.
Yeah, I think, that was beautiful. That was beautiful to hear that there are Western practitioners and doctors that feel like there is a balance, because my experience has been not that in the Western space. Also, symptoms management versus symptoms relief kind of comes into play there, right? So if someone is let's go diet, right? If their diet is leading them to a heart attack, then kind of assessing some of the root things that are leading to the heart attack, or whatever the dis-ease is of the body, the disconnect, to bring back that wholeness to the body.
Okay, before she goes on, as the lady in all black was talking, I was just thinking about how there's a difference between DO versus MD doctors. And I don't know if the women who are doctors under medical professionals are MDs or DOs, but that does make a difference as well, because MDs tend to just cover up, put a Band-Aid on it. Like, you have pain in your upper right quadrant, we'll give you some ibuprofen or Tylenol and you go home. Versus a DO is a doctor of osteopathic medicine, which is looking at the whole body. And I'm not saying that is something that's like a negative thing if you're an MD. It's just they're not trained to look at the entire body. Even doctor of pharmacy, even when I was in residency, it was like I was told to just focus on this one area, this only area of specialty. And I think that conversation, hopefully that's going to come up at some point, because understanding professional expertise, advice versus your own personal perspective, I think that also takes into place, and it does matter.
So that we don't need prescriptions that lead to different problems and, things of the sort. So I think there's a balance. Yeah, like you said, to your point, I break a leg, help, clearly,
Yes.
even I said lab work, that was something I don't draw blood. I'm not really a fan. But, if you bring me lab results, I can tell you some herbs that can support you in balancing that, as opposed to maybe here's a prescription that'll help with this, but you might have an accident in another place, So I just think symptoms management, where I feel like holistic medicine does give you an opportunity to take preventative measures before you need symptoms management.
Yeah.
I would like her to dive a little bit deeper into that. What do you mean by holistic? Because from my perspective, a lot of people, like lay persons, think of holistic as natural medicine, like natural herbs, and this is safe and all of this. Guess what? Marijuana is a natural herb. There are cocoa plants, there are cocaine and things like heroin, poppy seeds, things that are natural, but they're also very dangerous. So I think that, that's one thing we just need to be careful about. Just because it's natural or holistic does not mean it's safe at all. And we have poison ivy. Is that safe? No. But there are things that we do have that we use, such as, for example, turmeric. I use a lot of natural things like lavender, rosemary. Those are great things, but first of all, moderation and things of how to use them matters. You have to be just knowledgeable, because just because we don't know the dangers of this natural side does not mean it's not dangerous. It's just that there's not a lot of data. There's not a lot of studies done with it to identify whether or not it's dangerous or not. And another thing, and maybe they're going to mention it, is safety, because a lot of patients that I used to interact with for cancer patients, they're like, yeah, I'm taking this natural drug, plus I'm taking the cancer medicine. It's like, okay, when you're starting to go with both, you need to choose, because there's a lot of drug interactions. And I don't know if that's going to be a prompt to talk about, but let's see.
I think that's a good point. Like, you have to triage these things. Like, holistic medicine is fantastic for preventative care and like managing people long term. But in the risk of Western medicine interventions, medications outweigh the benefits, and holistic medicine is the way to go. But then otherwise, like especially for acute issues, like that's where Western medicine is really good at. We're really great at fixing those acute issues and, things like that. But I always advocate for holistic medicine preventatively. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think sometimes Western medicine can be very cookie cutter. And so kind of what you were talking about, you're prescribing this one diet to people with so many different symptoms and issues that are happening all at the same time. And it's like, that's not working. And so Western medicine kind of doesn't meet the mark in that space. And I do think that's where holistic comes in. And it's exciting to be able to see, people like yourselves that are promoting that message and creating spaces where they don't have to just go to do whatever the doctor said. I think that's important. I think sometimes we do kind of get past a certain point where that's helpful. And I think you also have to kind of look at that societal issue of, I want the fast thing. And that's where Western medicine comes in. Holistic takes time. You have to be willing to do the daily, multi-daily regimens in order to, to get to that goal. Exactly. Yeah, it takes time. And so that's kind of one of those things. People want the Band-Aid, the silver bullet, the quick, whatever is going to get me to the result I want. And the one pill daily sounds a lot better than the 6 times tea.
It's true.
Yeah,
6 times tea. Yeah.
It's like GLP-1 is better than a nutritionist.
Yeah.
And it's very nuanced too.
Yeah.
I think it's really nuanced, because like for me as a dermatologist, I do a lot of laser treatments in which we're creating controlled injury to the skin. And we know, from decades of research with wound healing, or how well the body is able to heal itself, or, we're able to heal from wounds. Those are influenced by, are you a smoker? Like, are you eating a lot of processed sugary foods? Are you eating a well-balanced diet? Do you have enough protein? All of these things are going to contribute to our ability to be able to heal well, right? But in those instances where there are emergencies or things where people need a little bit more help to get over the edge, then we do have medications, I think.
I think Okay, and I think she was kind of aligned with what I was saying about like there's other things that factor in, but I think they're sticking to safe ground. I would like to hear them go a little bit more into challenging the other side with things because like even just looking at holistic medicine, I mean, I mind body therapies, first of all, if we're a believer, we shouldn't be doing yoga, we shouldn't be doing Reiki. A lot of these things tap into Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine, and all these things that are not of God. And we have to be careful with saying just holistic mind, body, soul. Oh, we're going to just breathe in, breathe out, meditate, and not accounting for how is that affecting your spiritual sense, because it sounds good, but it may not be. And then also people were mentioning holistic is just preventative. I don't 100% see natural, at least the natural herbs and medicines, people using that just for preventative. I've seen people use that to treat things. They think that it's going to treat. There's claims to treat. So it would be nice to tap into that a little bit more and compare that to conventional treatment, for example, with cancer patients. And yeah, I mean, this is a very broad kind of stage right here, but it would be good to even just talk about maybe cancer patients. That's something, chronic and acute states, but it's still someone with cancer. Should they go a holistic route or should they go conventional? I think that would be maybe a more confrontational discussion.
Speak to your point when you talked about symptom management. I think with the prompt, we're talking about healing. And I'm wondering, like, with symptom management, and we're talking about synthetic pharmaceuticals, most of the time it's not addressing the root cause to actually heal the person. It is to make them comfortable for a long period of time. So I think when it comes to surgeries, that can help a healing process. But when it comes to pharmaceuticals, I think more often than not, the adverse effects are always going to outweigh the holistic approach to healing specifically.
I'd like to address that. I think you're absolutely right. If not used properly, one thing, so I used to work clinically for chronic diseases, blood pressure, diabetes, things of that nature. And my approach was we're going to use the medicine to make sure that your numbers are low enough to keep you controlled, but we're also working on lifestyle changes. You need to be eating well, you need to be exercising, so that my goal is to get you off of this medication.
That's great.
You're coming to me frequently enough that I can see where your numbers are. I'm having them log blood pressures. I'm having them gain understanding of what it looks like, what it means to truly be healthy. And yes, we're using the medicine, but the goal is not for you to be on this forever. Or at the very least, we can lower doses, come up with some different alternatives.
Yeah, I guess my question is, from your experience being with other practitioners, Western medical professionals, are there classes that you guys go through where they teach you the holistic side? Is it just Western medicine? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you feel like there's enough training? Because all of you guys sound like you value the holistic side as well, which is amazing. We need more professionals like you,
I honestly, before she answers that, I would ask her the question too, and I bet they're not going to ask. Like, do you fully understand the holistic side yourself? And do you fully understand like what medicine does and how that works? Because from their perspective, like even this lady in the flower dress, it seems like she's thinking holistics like way above here. And granted, that's how many people perceive, especially in this day and age. Everything you want to do natural, and of course, organic, natural, healthy. I'm all for that. But what is holistic is so broad that it would be like, can you give me examples of what you're saying? I think those things need to come out a little bit more. I just feel like everyone's just agreeing here. I would be the one like challenging some of these conversations to really dig into what they're really talking about, because it sounds very surface level right now.
But from your experience, are there any actual trainings, classes, accountability where that's made for preventative care, and not just, make sure you eat well, you make sure you're, all that stuff, you're exercising. Is there education that you're given, or do you feel like that needs to be improved?
It's okay if I answer. So in nursing, a lot of what we learn is about building rapport, patient education, and patient-centered care. So when I got my doctorate in nursing practice, We didn't necessarily have holistic practice classes but a lot of our classes or teaching was about like that personalized care and being culturally sensitive. So when you're culturally sensitive, you can't just depend on Western medicine because it's basically just Western. And a lot of these holistic practices come from other cultures. And so that's how we kind of dive into that holistic practice in a way. And so although we don't learn about all the different herbs and things, we understand what's important to our patients. And then we as individuals go out and learn that. Because I don't know about you guys. I'd never had a holistic practice class.
Yeah.
But I have cultural competency. Okay. And that helps me go out and learn the other.
So I did. We had like complementary alternative medicine. We learned about different herbs and things, but I mean, we learned about them in their proportions and what their indications were. We learned about their drug interactions, what may affect them, what are side effects to them. Like fish oil has side effects for bleeding. Cinnamon this is for good. It lowers your blood sugar. Garlic, like we learned about these things, but at the same time, again, there's no like gold standard evidence of harm and benefits over risk, like with drugs that are made, because honestly, we would have to go through FDA approvals and things of that nature. So they're two separate paths basically. And being that they're two separate paths, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily better than the medicine. And it just depends. It depends.
Things that I need to learn based on my specialties.
Well, everything is metaphysical. Everything is metaphysical. Everything is connected. And I think that's a big part of what drew me to holistic medicine at all, was understanding that there's so many pieces that contribute to the whole. And the thing about Western medicine is it isolates symptoms. You have this problem, even in psychology, like I was gonna be a psychologist, that's what I was going to school for. But telling people that you have a certain symptom or a certain condition sometimes masks the real issue. And there's a name for everything, whether we're talking about mental health or physical health, there's a name for everything. And going around that or trying to treat that directly sometimes can keep you in a bad position or chronic condition for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I have like 3 points. Western medicine, the reason why there is no holistic training is because it's very Eurocentric in its beginnings. So when you talk about holistic and you talk about whole and you talk about, as you said, what was that beautiful word? Cultural competency. You'd have to include that in order for your practice to be culturally competent, to me, right? So then to your point, some of these diagnoses and these names and stuff are from dudes from the 1700s in Switzerland that look nothing like me. They're going to call it whatever they want to call it. And has no one come up with any other ideas or names for these things since 1700? Wow. All these geniuses, all these people we can't come up with anything.
Why we always got to bring race into it? I'm sorry. Why? Remove self. I don't know if anyone's Christian up on this platform, but yeah, let me keep going. Sorry.
How does he's the only one that gets to be creative, right? And then to the third point, I have a 17, she's 17. I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I had her at 16 years old. My son is 6. So for 11 years, I was told I couldn't get pregnant. Western medicine, failed IVF twice. With my husband, I was heartbroken, going through depression and all sorts of things. I was given medicines, I was given tests, thousands of tests, just completely heartbreaking. And after the second round of IVF, I was like, you know what? Let me see if there's something I haven't considered beyond what I thought I needed to only consider, which is doc, doc help. Look, we trying to help me. I'm a woman that doesn't work. That's a very vulnerable space for a woman to be in, and to only have one space to rely on. And it's just management. Well, let's bring you birth control, or let's do this. It'll help you bring the period. You can't get rid of the period. Try this. So, to your point, I went into spiritual understanding. Come to find out, I was sexually assaulted as a young girl, and that brother's energy through meditation was still.
So before she go too much into what she about to say, I just think that I understand what she's saying, but the core thing you need to understand is you need God. You need Jesus Christ of Nazareth. He is the only one that can identify like what your core issues are and tell you what to do. For example, I have had, when I was younger, I was told that I needed to be on birth control to help control my acne. And when I got on birth control, honestly, like I honestly did not think I needed to be on birth control. I didn't like birth control, but I felt like it was a method to just get people on it to control. And I remember when I got on birth control, I blew up. I gained so much weight. It was very unhealthy. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I remember the pharmacist I was working with as a technician at the time, she was like, she had a hard time getting pregnant because she got off birth control and it took a couple of years. And I just thought, like, I don't want to be like that. When I get married and all that, I don't want to have issues with having a child. I want it to just be easy and like pop. And so I can understand what she's saying. Like, the doctor's going to tell you this and that and the third. However, you have to realize that this is something spiritual. Like, if you want to find out how to heal, how to do all this, it's, yes, holistic. All that sounds great. It sounds like the answer, but it's not. That's why I always say Jesus is the answer, because Jesus told me, like, I prayed and I asked God, Lord, show me how to get rid of this acne. And he told me, he guided me, he led me. And I didn't want to take medicines. I was on like doxycycline and all these medicines, all these tetracyclines. I didn't want any of that. I just wanted to do it a natural way. And the Lord gave me that wisdom.
Inside of my womb space. So I yoni steamed, I use yoni eggs. I started my own sacred practice with my own energy. And now, like I said, I have a 6-year-old son 11 years later. So that's what my business is dedicated to. My practice is like, yeah, there's this umbrella of you can't get pregnant because there might be fibroids, it might be PCOS. My case was unexplained infertility as well. But then there's also another component is there sexual SA inside of your womb? Is there other entities by choice that you let inside of your womb that wished you ill and you knew they wished you ill that are still living there? Are you properly taking steps to cleanse those entities out? Right? Because that's your blockage. Right? So like, I'm to the root. You feel me? Like, we're not.
Yeah, but you're not going the right way, sis. You to the root, but you ain't going the right way. You got to come to Christ. All these other things actually can make you sick too. It's a lie from the enemy. And the thing about this, because she's saying she did all the spiritual stuff and all that, but you realize that the enemy can do this. Like, he can do the healings and all this stuff too. Do you realize that the enemy can heal? It's a false healing, but he can do that. She has not mentioned Christ at all at this point. So from what she said so far, it doesn't seem like it's anything of God that she's using to heal her. So we got to be careful. And I don't know like I said, I don't know who's a Christian on this panel, but they should not be saying while she's talking. I'll be honest. Like, we got to be careful with being in agreement with things like this.
You want a baby, but you're here for much more.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback on you too, for that, especially running the HTMA, which is the hair test mineral analysis. And you'll see, with this on people's hair, it'll start when you have any kind of trauma, PTSD, childhood trauma that you might even not be aware of. It'll come up on this test, because what happens is it starts pulling minerals out of other areas of the body to protect that certain area. So if there's sexual trauma, sexual dysfunction, what's going to happen is the calcium is going to start being pulled into the womb. It's going to start pulled into the brain. I'm able to see that on the HTMA as well. So the body has managers and protectors. Yeah. You'll see this like with PTSD, people that go through like EMDR. Survival. Exactly. So the body puts those managers there and starts pulling from other areas of the body. So we're not addressing the spiritual cause. We're not addressing stress, trauma, and a lot of stuff that I've seen is rooted in that.
Now, I could agree with that, although they're talking another spiritual, but I could agree that, like, a lot of things that do happen, even there was a study done at Johns Hopkins about stress and how that contributes to increased risk of high cholesterol and stroke. Like things like unforgiveness. Forgiveness actually is a healing mechanism. It's something, and this is why, again, the Bible, that's the answer. I'm just going to always point back to that, because the Lord tells us to forgive. but unforgiveness can actually cause stroke. It can cause issues, heart issues, cardiac issues. The culprit can be because of unforgiveness, hatred, and hardenedness in your heart. And the funny thing about it is, a hardened heart, you think about a hardened heart, spiritually hardened heart is bad, but a hardened heart in the physical sense is blockage of plaque in your arteries and veins, and that can lead to stroke. Like, come on, tell me without telling me that the spiritual and natural world is so cohesive, and it's tied into the word of God. He tells us to forgive. He tells us to lay down our life. He tells us to do things according to his will, because we will find peace. So praise God.
I think you bring up an excellent point. I used to be part of a pain management clinic, and we talked a lot about PTSD, stress, trauma, things, and how that affects physically into the body and causes pain. And a lot of times they're, obviously, again, wanting pain management medication to take away the pain, which is how we get into things like addiction and things of that nature. But beyond that, we have to go so much deeper. And so that's where I definitely feel like you have to have that intersection, because you have to go deep into the psyche to understand what happened to me. And again, things that we frequently don't even remember. Stuff that happened when we were children, stuff that, maybe we were intoxicated, blacked out, don't quite remember, what the scenario was, and then you wake up one day and you're like, something isn't right. Oh, I have this pain in my lower back. Oh, the doctor said it was sciatica, but maybe it's so much deeper than that. And so really being able to say, okay, again, a pain medication can do wonders for that Band-Aid effect, right? But can we go deeper into how has the trauma affected me? Can I address the cause, which is the trauma? Can we build just a better understanding, come to just that cognitive understanding that this is what happened to me. Let me rectify, let me deal with this, heal within my body. And then maybe I don't need that medication anymore, and I can, go forth and be merry, from that. Yeah.
Science cannot explain everything that contributes to health.
Yo, that was a long prompt. First of all, that was 20 minutes. Let me see this one. I don't know if I can tell the difference. Oh, spiritual practices, holistic healers should be. Okay, yeah, let's see how this one is.
And healing.
I definitely.
It says science cannot explain everything that contributes to health and healing. That's the prompt.
I agree with this because I find that the universe is so much more complex, and I believe in God. I believe in the Bible. I believe that the designer, if some,
Okay, so someone who believes in the Bible, and she was yesing all what that lady was saying. Okay, just had to point that out.
A higher power, whatever people believe, that it's so intricate, and we are trying. I'm grateful for science, but I think the thing about science is it's found by humans, and humans are limited in our mind and our understanding. And so I think science is trying to catch up with what was already designed by the creator. And so that makes me even fascinated with science itself, to go, these are people that are intrigued by what God designed.
I just want to agree, because even everything you said to me identifies that there is one creator, and science has not caught up with that. Just the fact that you can actually see the calcium deposits for where the trauma is. Our body was designed by an intelligent being, and that's why it's able to do that. That's why we are able to also heal in some capacity on our own without Western medication or intervention. So absolutely agree. And if we're defining science by what is man-made, of course, it cannot solve everything.
Right, of course.
There's a book.
Yeah, and science points to Christ. Just FYI, science points to Christ.
Called Metaphysical Anatomy. Have y'all heard of it? It's by a lady named Yvette Rose. And it's basically pretty much every ailment known to man in this big encyclopedia, and every emotional root cause to it. And there's so many things, like you said, I agree that science is basically just trying to figure out what is already going on. So it will never have all the answers, and it's always evolving. It's a process, not like an end all be all. But when I found out about that book, that's when the whole like things, they haven't caught up to this. Nobody's really talking about this. I don't even know how we could conduct a research study to prove some of this stuff, but I have personally experienced it, and I work with people to help them do it. Like even just, so I do a lot of wellness retreats. And so just training people on how to open up their hips and how the nervous system is storing stress in the body. And people ending up breaking down in tears just because they had a good deep hip opening and not even knowing what happened. They're like, I don't know why I'm crying, but it's just all coming up right now. So there's so much we can explain. Yeah.
I am a practitioner. However, I'm highly involved in my church. I'm a Christian, non-denominational, and I am on what we called our altar ministry, where we pray, intercede, and also do deliverance. So a lot of the emotional aspects are spiritual as well. And I've seen people get prayer and what we call manifest when they're actually kind of like that crying from the deep hip, release, like a manifestation, which is just the crying from them being released from something spiritual, and it causes healing. Yeah, working in that ministry, I can see people like manifest, which is just showing like they're having a spiritual event. It's just the best way I can put it. But they come out healed, like physically healed, emotionally healed. And it's just incredible. It's like, we can't explain that. You came in here a hot mess and you leaving something different. And we didn't do that. All we did was have faith and pray with you and intercede with you. And that's been released spiritually.
I prayed to Jesus Christ. I wish there was someone on here that was a little bit more bold in their faith. I think it's cute. This is cute, like tea hour. The one in the lady in the brown at the end, what she was talking about with the hip opening. I don't know if she was trying to reference, like, is this something like God is doing to release, or is she talking about something like spiritual? Because I don't know if she was the one that mentioned metaphysical, but that terminology is all under this yoga, Reiki, energy type of terminology. And I don't want to judge her just by what she said, but I'm not finding a lot of how we're applying this to our faith and belief. And I think that would be a good tie-in, like more tie-in to that, and not just being generalized and saying, yeah, this is my experience. Like tie it in as a whole, as the source of truth. Yeah.
Well, I believe in God too, so. I'm over here like, hallelujah.
She said it all.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, in our experience, kind of what I was talking about earlier about two things can be true. A lot of things are not mutually exclusive. We talked a lot about cultural competency. And I think, you all were asking even earlier if we have holistic training and things like that. And it's a little bit difficult to answer because I think in every situation, you bring yourself, right? You bring all of you. And so I'm a physician. I'm a woman of faith. I'm a first generation American, of Nigerian descent. So all of these things are contributing to my experience and how I deliver health. And that's what I walk into the room with. So yes, you best believe I'm going to use the best treatments that I learned about because every patient deserves the best. But if my patient wants to pray, we're going to pray. Even if they don't, I'm going to pray over myself and my hands before I go into that situation, because that is going to inform what toolkit I need to pull from.
Amen. I like this lady at the end. I don't know is that her? I don't know. No judgment, but I'm just trying to figure out, is this pants or like, where's her skirt at? Okay, let me, Sharita, focus. One thing I was going to say, like what she was saying about praying, I completely agree, because being that I deal with patients or talk to patients who are cancer patients who are dealing with so much, like they're at the lowest point of life. And I believe that's such a great opportunity to go in and talk about prayer and seeking. I just remember one guy, he was just in so much pain. He was in stage disease. And I mean, I asked him, was he a believer, and if I could pray with him? Because I believe that, like, all this stuff, yeah, we're going to get the medicine, we're going to coordinate delivery and all this stuff. All that's great. But you got to hit on the spiritual at some point, especially if you're a believer and you know that we're not fighting against flesh and blood. And again, and they're hitting, like the lady that you're hitting, the key is like being a believer, knowing before you even enter that room Like, that's the toolbox I'm gonna pull from. Is, does this person just need that regular consult, or do I need to just stop everything I'm doing and just pray for that person, speak life into them? All that does matter.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it all contributes, and that's the power of just having people from so many different backgrounds and experiences. It's really powerful.
Yeah. And I actually will say, just really quickly, as you guys were talking, I started thinking about the placebo effect and how just because a person feels in their mind that something can be okay, sometimes that triggers something in their body, because sometimes you're dealing with things so much. Have you ever, like, you're thinking about it constantly, it's on your mind, it's worrying you, it's causing headaches, it's causing all these different things, that's manifesting in your body. But sometimes a prayer, somebody just being there with you and saying, hey, I got you, you're not alone in this, or, you know, having different, you know, holistic type of healing or yoga, things like that, can open up something and make you say, oh, okay, this isn't as heavy as I thought it may be. And I don't, so sometimes, like, is it science? Maybe not, but sometimes I get, maybe it's just that, like, dopamine release of like, okay, everything will be okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, being in the
No to yoga, just FYI, or Reiki. It opens up spiritual things like third eye and everything that you do not want to open up, ultimately, like Kundalini and all that. So no to yoga.
infertility space, because that's my journey, is, you know, I've been trying to get pregnant for the last 7 years, and going to the doctor and them saying over and over, it's not possible. Like, just so inconsiderate, and you know how delivery, you know, happens, and it being very consistent. Everyone, I'm going there and I'm like, please, somebody have hope for me, you know, to the point where I'm like, being so angry at a doctor on the phone, and she's another woman, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, my sister, but you are telling me with such confidence, and you have no idea. Just tell me you don't know. But I have seen it where I can look at my fertility, where I'm like, once I started believing and I had hope, that did something to my body. In these infertility groups, and I stopped saying infertility, I am now holistically healing. But in these infertility groups where people are identifying as being infertile, I've had people that are leaders say, oh, I've given up hope years ago. Hope isn't my friend. Hope has hurt me so much. And it breaks my heart every time, because I'm like, what do you mean hope is the way that you're going to get out of this? But I think that there hasn't been a blend of the Eastern and Western to go, you need both. You need God, you need prayer. I have to pray every day. Some days, like you said, some days I'm so excited, wow, this is gonna happen, and you know, please give me wisdom and all that stuff. Other days I'm like, God, help me to enjoy the journey, you know? But I'm seeing my hormones starting to heal. The more that I'm consistent with that faith, with that hope, along with exercise, diet, community, research, you know, but I do believe, and I've seen specifically my own hormones be tracked, and you're seeing signs where doctors are like, I'm so sorry, you need a donor egg, you need, you know, all these things, your body's not gonna heal at all, and it's so definite. And so,
yeah, and I think that I can understand where she's coming from. She's basically like, listen, you know, but my thing is, that's why we do not put our hope in man. We do not put our hope in the doctor. The doctors can say one thing, but God says another. And I've seen it happen where my friend, even, she said the doctor said she couldn't have a baby after this surgery procedure she had. And I would say even 3 months, less than a year later, she was pregnant. So the Lord can do it. The Lord can open up your womb. And I just pray for this woman, even, Lord. I just pray that you open up her womb and just show her, continue to give her faith and encouragement. I don't think she should be around people that are negative, like the infertility person saying that. I would stop going. If I think she said that's the leader or someone, I would stop going, and I would go around godly women who can speak life into you. And I believe there is a power in words. There's power in prayer. There's a power in faith and hope in Jesus to heal. He is the one. It's not what this lady at the end over here with the scarf was saying about, you know, doing meditation. No, Like the enemy, those are counterfeits to what God can do.
I've personally seen miracles in that, so it's exciting. Yeah.
So something I learned through the practice of meditation, or like researching meditation, is I started getting into neurology a lot, and I am completely impressed. So whenever you have a thought, your brain doesn't know if it's real or not. And so all of your neural pathways, you are basically building these connections, and you can become addicted to trauma. You can pull things into your experience because you need to have, it's almost like an addiction. You need to have a hit of that connection feeling again. So if you can retrain your brain, which I learned this through, what is it called? Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Incredible book. Incredible book.
Read.
I love to read. So he basically talks about how to retrain your brain, and you can do this for physical healing as well.
Great. It almost forms like a trauma bond.
Modern medicine has saved
Sorry, y'all need to read the Bible. Y'all reading all this other stuff. Read the Bible. Modern medicine has saved millions of lives. Interesting claim.
millions of lives that holistic practices never could.
Because, like I said earlier, like I think if more practitioners and people, because people got to be responsible for themselves, practice preventative health, which is essentially holistic medicine, then they wouldn't get into the point where they need interventions or medication, like prescription medications. I'm very big on preventative health. The main reason I became a nurse practitioner is because I was working in acute care and I wanted to keep people out of the hospital. So preventative medicine, holistic medicine.
But the prompt says modern medicine has saved, not like could save. So has it done it or not? The answer is yes, it has. Anyways, sorry, let me go.
And is very important to my practice. Sometimes before I even talk about prescribing a medication, recommending surgery, I'm like, we need to hit these points first. Like, what are you doing in your lifestyle? And a big thing about our practices, all of our practices is assessment. And we have to ask about those things. Like, not just smoking and drinking. Like, are you having stress in your life? Did you have a recent, trauma? Things like that. We do have to ask about it. So I think if we embraced holistic medicine a little bit earlier in life, then we could save a lot more people.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think the hard part is, historically, if I'm talking from the fertility space, there was so much science that wasn't done, that hasn't been done for so long. And so you have women in the 70s and and I think that's when IVF came out, where before that they're cutting out you're getting hysterectomies and all that stuff. And so unfortunately, I think if we're talking about history for women, I think that's where the Western practice has helped thousands of women. But I think now that more education has come out, more research, specifically for women's bodies, I do believe that preventative health is everything, but it's kind of sad how many, if I think about it too long, I'll cry for women. I'm just like, gosh, we were left out for so long, lied to for so long. And yeah.
When I heard this question, I actually first thought about emergencies and birth defects. Like, there's some things that improve people's quality of life and helps them, in an emergency situation that holistic medicine, I don't think, can do. So there are some amazing devices and developments in Western medicine that I think we need.
I agree. Yeah. I think my first thought was infectious disease.
That's interesting that a holistic person had to say that. I think they're just being friendly stuff. Like, they're not really, because they just, that should have been on the medical side, because that's a fact.
And how, if you get some kind of really bad infection, there's no holistic, there's no prayer. You can pray. Let me not say that. I don't want to get canceled. But
like MRSA or immediate intervention.
But sometimes it can get so bad that you genuinely need antibiotics and multiple antibiotics if it's bad enough. So sometimes your body can clear infections itself, but sometimes you need medication.
And I think it's evident, if you just look historically, of how lifespans have increased over years is because we know more. We have more tools. You know, we're able to fight in ways that weren't available to us before.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important.
On that note, I'd love to ask you guys about fasting. Have you, obviously we've all heard about fasting, but what's your take on fasting, and like if you have an infection or if you have so many diseases, I would love your thoughts on that as medical professionals and the power of fasting, or, you know, what do you understand about it?
You mean fasting as a treatment for? I've never thought of fasting as a treatment option.
I think not, not as, I wouldn't prescribe it,
Right.
as it wasn't, taught in medical school, at least not in my experience. But when we think about, all of the correlations between diet and infection, right? We know ultra-processed foods are not great for cancer. High foods high in sugar are not great, right? And so I think it kind of starts to become, you can kind of
Like put the dots together.
exactly
Sure.
understand from that perspective, and then kind of do what you will with that. But
I like her. She's very professional. She's very good at her profession. I can tell. I don't know where her dermatology office is, but I think she's probably a great dermatologist. And I completely agree with her with the cancer and how like certain sugars and things are known to, like, cancers feed off of and thrive off of sugar. I wouldn't say fasting per se, but intermittent fasting, like, just personally, I know has been a life changer. Like, as we get older, our metabolism slows down. It's almost like you need time, your body needs time to catch up to all the food that you've eaten throughout the day, where you should just stop eating at a certain point. So I think fasting is definitely spiritually even a benefit as well as physically.
then on the other hand, there are people who benefit from fasting in a spiritual realm, right? And so maybe you're now able to get multiple benefits from it in that regard. But I wouldn't maybe stand on the scientific podium and say that. This is me speaking as a woman who is curious in the world and has explored multiple things and has gone through medical school and also read the Bible and, looked at all of these different correlations in diet and things like that.
Yeah, there are have anybody ever heard of Dr. Yaki? Okay, so there are a lot of diseases that actually can be treated by way of fasting and certain herbs. Now, to your point, dear, like, there are things that you can do that can quickly get rid of stuff, and some people don't like them. They want the microwave. They don't want to take the time to cook it on the stove. You know what I'm saying? So that's a thing. But then the other thing is there's really no money in people being well. There's more money in your profession in keeping people sick. Not saying y'all are doing it personally, but if I can tell you there's a medication for this disease, and then this medication causes this, and then now we're setting you up to, for the next 30 years, need medication, which somebody's getting paid for that automatic prescription for the next 30 years off of you, and you're sick, and you're getting worse, and all these things. When you fast and you start detoxing the colons and the kidneys, the liver, the spleen, you start getting rid of cleaning these vital organs, you can start replacing, with different herbs or different, things, medicines and things like that. So, like, I fast for spiritual reasons. Like, I've never used fasting for like a disease or anything like that. But that's something that you would like want to, Western medicine, they're not going to have that's not going to be an option. But
Even Western medicine, what other, maybe Eastern Chinese medicine, but I'm trying to figure out are they going to mention that? Western medicine doesn't have that as a treatment, but what side does? I know we do intermittent fasting now. We do, like, fasting has been known to be more spiritual. So I'm trying to figure out where they're hitting on how it's treating something like a natural healing thing. I'm not really fully understanding it. I don't know if this lady in the purple and the flower dress had an answer, or she was just curious. But I do agree with this lady about the industry and how, like, sicker, the better, the more money, all that stuff is definitely true to attest what she's saying. Yeah.
it is absolutely something that can be done.
This is a bigger conversation about the education piece, like you said.
Yeah.
because holistic practitioners, what do you call them, naturopaths and things like that, they'll say fasting is the first thing you should do when you get cancer. Sending your body into autophagy so it can clean up those damaged cells, the cancer cells, as quickly as possible, even with endometriosis. But when we think about the history of how Western medicine was developed with, what's his name, Rockefeller and Carnegie?
Yep.
The whole thing was set up for profit. And so because that's how it is, and then Harvard was funded and the whole Flexner files happened, that they structured it in a way where petrochemicals were gonna be the thing that we're gonna use. So I think that we all are wanting the same things. It's just a lack of mandatory education about this.
I think that's so true. I think in pharmacy school, we have, I think, maybe 6 weeks that we learned about the natural part of medication and how many drugs do come from nature, and that's their derivative, but then you get into adding all these other chemicals and things like that. And so you don't get that deep understanding, and that's something that I think many of us, if you want to learn about it, you have to kind of get that education on your own, post-grad, or things like that. And I think that's such a missed opportunity, because the education, like you said, the education is huge, but it is something you get to realize as you grow in your career. It's like, oh, I see what this is about.
So can I ask you all, getting into this field, knowing what you know about the practices, their roots, and all of this, what was your driving force to get into medicine on this side as women?
Yeah, like I said, for me, it was to keep people out of acute care. I've just seen so many things that could have been prevented, and people, they're just really sick, and it's just like all of this, for like 90% of it could have been prevented. Like my father just had a stroke.
Mind you, this ain't even hitting the prompt. Y'all are just done. Y'all hit the prompt like for 2 seconds and then went over. Modern medicine has saved millions of lives. That holistic medicine practices. I guess the lady in the brown on the holistic side, actually, she was on that answered it. But yeah, they going on a tangent.
In November, absolutely preventable. He's 52 years old. Absolutely preventable. And these are the type of people I want to help. Because like lifestyle modifications, seeing the whole person, I feel like there was a lot of spiritual things, emotional things that could have been dealt with that could have prevented this acute thing that happened and has completely changed his life. So for me, it's just to keep people healthy for as long as they can and looking at the whole person. And I feel like when I was growing up, I didn't have that in my household, and I didn't know about it medically because we were very poor. So I didn't go to the doctors or anything like that. So learning that and knowing that I could be a key part in somebody's life, like for a lifetime, was something that really spurred me on to doing that.
Oh, some things are so genetic and passed down. Like you're connected with your umbilical to your mother's microbiome, her trauma, generational things. So sometimes it is out of our hands.
Yeah.
I'll say something that I think we're starting to learn more of is about how the males, how he takes care of himself and what he ingests and how he takes care of his body is definitely having an impact on the child itself and how healthy that fetus and newborn can be.
I would run an HTMA test on them and see if a heavy metal.
This lady, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She just be coming up with all these abbreviations like she's in a huddle at the hospital, and she's just around all these medical. The lady next to her said that she ain't a healthcare professional, and I feel like it makes her feel smart. I'm sorry, but she's just been this whole time just running abbreviations like everyone knows what she's talking about. And she just, I don't know. I don't think she's reaching where she needs to reach, but they're just going to agree anyway. So
Overload has been passed down to the child, where there's, mineral deficiencies, or certain minerals can even turn toxic against you, like calcium. Zinc, copper, manganese is another one. You'll see that in a lot of mental health disorders with, high manganese in a copper shell, in a calcium shell. So, especially with copper, it gets higher per generation. That heavy metal toxicity is passed down. You're going to have ADHD. I know autism just came out, but there's so much more to that with, besides the glutathione and the Tylenol. You're having also copper toxicity, so calcium shells. So to me, it would be running a test on a child and then running the test on the parents as well to see if this was something that was passed down and just kind of stop that generational,
Yeah, I was going to say I think during the 50s to 70s, there were a lot of drugs that were given. And for example, I just found out both sides of my grandmothers took, I think it was called DS-150. And I knew that my dad's side, his mom took it. A recent trip, I found out that my mom's side, my grandmother on her side took it. And apparently it affects not the children after, but the next generation, which would be me. And I have it on both sides. And so I think, like you said, taking tests, but also asking your family history. What are some things that you know about your parents? What are, medications that were given? And again, I think that's a part in history where they're trying to figure out how to help people. There was a need, and so we have to, provide something to help. But I think along the line, you realize, oh man, we didn't mean for this to happen, but these are the results. And then we have to figure out a way to detox. I think they're trying to figure out research on how to detox a child. Because for me, I love to fast, but is a child supposed to fast? That's, I don't, from what I've found, I don't think children are supposed to fast like that. But you could do elimination, maybe remove the carbs and sugar and all the all the inflammatory things. But yeah, the testing and family history is so big, especially if you come from minority backgrounds. And we know there are red tape sections where they're given certain medications to certain types of people, and so it's going to impact, that can have an impact as well.
Spiritual practices like meditation and prayer are as important as medical treatment.
I mean, I think we all.
It goes with the mind, body. Healing.
It goes into that cultural competency, like the whole person is mental, physical, spiritual. If you take out that spiritual part of someone's healing, I feel like it's dishonoring them. And it's just like you're not using all the tools in your toolbox. It's just like you got everything you need, but you just decided not to use that for what? And I feel like Western medicine is really good at that, ignoring that spiritual aspect because they just feel like there's no evidence to back it up. But there's even research about like what it does to you by reading the Bible a certain amount of times a week, how it helps with you with stress and things.
Really quick, as she's talking, I'm thinking about schizophrenia and mental health, and like she's right. Like it's such a disservice, and I'm mentioning those because those are like mental health kind of conditions, like depression, all that. How we go to medicine for everything. I think that's one thing. I'm like, okay, we can go to medicine for a backache and all that stuff. But then when we get into the actual spiritual realm of things like schizophrenia, and then we still go to medicine, it's like, why? Like, that is the line we're crossing over and saying, oh, this is just natural. This is the natural chemical imbalance. Even this lady talking about calcium and manganese and all that, there's spiritual things happening. And the explanation is the elements and all that, but really it's spiritual, because how can a chemical imbalance of dopamine and norepinephrine or whatever cause you to see things, cause you to see demons, cause you to see things and tell you to do bad things? There's something more in the spiritual realm than what we can see or we can understand. And it's not just about chemical imbalances. It's more to things than that. And medicine, I was watching when I was in pharmacy school, watching a video, and this guy, he was smoking, he's schizophrenic, and he was getting interviewed and the interviewer was asking questions like, do you see, does the medicine help? And he says, yes. And he says, how does it help? It helps me recognize what's there and what's not, because, he was seeing things. And then he asked, do you see something right now? And he's like, yeah, and it's behind you. And then he's like, oh, And what is it telling you to do? It says, he's telling me to harm you. And then he told the reporter, I think you should leave. And then he just stopped talking. And so my thing is like, how can a chemical imbalance do that? There's something more to the spiritual realm than what we can understand. And we cannot just always cover it up with even holistic medicine. It's all about the word of God. It's all about the Bible and scripture and casting it onto the Lord. It has nothing to do with just our own natural way of doing spirituality, because spirituality does not mean everything's good just because you're tapping into the spiritual realm, because there's spiritual wickedness too in high places. So we just have to be careful with how we're handling that. So let's finish this and we'll keep going. Yeah.
It's like that. And like, I don't know. I just feel like you really have to look at the big picture, and just taking any part of that puzzle out just makes it really incomplete.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that's really exciting is that I am starting to see a bit more bridging, especially with the data to now catch up. We're looking a lot more now at the mind-body connection. And even in dermatology, we'll see, even if someone has a pre-existing skin condition, if they're going through a stressful time or a really depressed time of high stress, they may experience more flares. If they have acne, their acne may flare. Their eczema could flare. Their psoriasis could flare. So yes, we're looking at all of the physical contributions, but that mind-body connection is also really big.
Yeah.
I have a question for you
But
guys.
I think mind, body, spirit, and that's not hitting on the spiritual.
You mentioned research. Is there something two questions, I guess. After you completed your degree, is there something that's mandatory to keep you up on the new research? And then outside of the research that they mandate for you, do you have your own practice to keep up with what's going on? Which obviously balancing your patients and your careers with keeping up with the science, the holistic science and all that, what does your individual practices look like?
Yeah. So for nursing and as a nurse practitioner, we have to renew our license every 2 years and do what is called continuing education to renew our license. And it's a certain amount of credits you're supposed to get, but there is no determination on what you have to study. So my specialty is adult to gerontology primary care. But I like to look up stuff on diabetes, even though I don't treat a lot of people with diabetes outside of my nephrology, which is just kidney disease, y'all. That's what that means. Okay. So kidney disease, gerontology, I study a lot of chronic illnesses because the older you get, they kind of like compound upon each other, especially if they didn't take good care of themselves when they were younger. But you can research whatever you want to get those education hours. So it's like we get to choose what we want, but we just have to hit a number, basically. Yeah. But we get to pick what we research and dive into.
Yeah, it's the same in pharmacy, those continuing education hours. The only difference I would say is if you specialize, then you do have to get a few hours within the specialty that you have, just so that you keep that education and see, know what's new and going on with the different disease states. But as far as individual, on my own, I love social media, and I know you have to fact check, which I do, but I love learning about different, I follow some dentists and things like that, and they're just talking about different things. And I know that doesn't really have anything to do with pharmacy, but again, it all works together. The whole body works together, and we talk about how things in oral care can have effect on your heart and things like that. So there's so much. So just being well versed and just learning more about different other people's specialties is really, really fun.
Holistic healers should be held to the same scientific standards as doctors.
Right, I'm like,
Well, I just don't think the science is there. If you're a holistic healer, you're tapping into very spiritual practices. So I think eventually we will, and we are getting there, but I think it's limited. It'll be hard to test or teach on, say, Bible and medicine. I think that's a thing, but I don't know if they're going to do a course on that anytime soon, or if they would even, as humans, I don't think, to me, God is just so big.
So you're making an excuse, because there are studies done to identify, even prayer, how prayer can like change like your perspective or influence you emotionally. And they would do tests and look at the brainwaves, even speaking in tongues. There's studies and data and papers, white papers on this. So to say, oh, they shouldn't test because they're not able to identify this, it's not true. They even have in the New England Journal of Medicine, the death of Christ and how that was possible, and giving the details of how he had to pull his hands up in order to breathe and then just get sunken back down, and how scientifically it was impossible for him to be dead after being taken off the cross. So there are things that you can do. It's just that you guys are making an excuse. That's what I'm going to say. Sorry.
No, and so if you're tapped into that, and that's what you're going by as one of the bases, then it's going to be hard to reach for that, you know? Now, in terms of training, yes, I do believe that, one, I think there should be more programs that are offered to many different types of people to have access to holistic healing and where it's not so expensive, or you know, there's so many, I feel like there's so many roadblocks for many people. And myself, I'm not a professional either on either side. It's more my personal journey, but I do see results from evidence, from practicing, from sharing, and that's incredible. And to your point, social media is incredible. I think, especially for women, there are spaces where I think that's why we're like this, because it's like, oh my gosh, she's a professional, and you have that experience, and we get to learn and we get to glean, but it's tying those two together for the holistic and the Western. I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, I say no because I like the freedom that you guys have. I think pharmacy is so structured. There's so many rules and laws and things, and for good reason, right? Like that's necessary. But I think the beauty in holistic care is you get the freedom to explore. You get to learn and understand what works, what doesn't. How do I go from the Western, very cookie cutter approach that I mentioned earlier to, you know, like you said, that nuance that may be required for someone who is seeking that holistic care. Now, should there be sort of standard procedures and things like that? Absolutely, and I do think that structure is there for a purpose and should be created within practices. But I think that's the beauty of it, is that you get to try a few different things and not have to, you know, be so like
rigid.
Yeah.
Girl, bye. I'm sorry. As a pharmacist, you should not be saying this. Absolutely not. Like, stop, please. Because no, you do need rigidity with things because of the dangers. Okay, there's still dangers. Like you said yourself, that there is a lot of drugs that are derivatives or of these natural things. Do you think some of these natural things might be dangerous? Being that they're derivatives does not make them less or more dangerous. So no, I think there should be more rigidity of naturopathic ways. Now, there's some things that we don't have to be, you know, USDA and all that, but if they're going to claim something, if they're going to claim that this is going to cure cancer, which we have claims with certain natural medicines, naturopathic, holistic, those things need to be scientifically proven, point blank, period. And if we get away from that, then we're going into dangers of harm to people. And I'm not saying scientifically proven means that it's the gold standard for everything, but at least we have information and data. That's why we have information and data on medical marijuana and all this stuff, because we find these things to be like a rise of people using it. So we need to identify, is this safe? Is it actually the claim of what it's saying it's going to do to help with nausea, to help with appetite? Is that really going to be the case? We need to actually do more, because not only that, we're thinking of it as two different things. People are using these things together. So the interactions, all of those things need to be considered. And so even more so, we need to start using at least a naturopathic, I don't know about holistic, whatever, but naturopathic way. We need to dig more into, do these interact, do these have issues if you use them together? I think there needs to be more research on that.
rigid
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
about the practice itself.
I think it's both. I said maybe, or both, I guess, because holistic encompasses so many things. Like we have traditional Chinese medicine, which is holistic. It's ancient medicine that there's so much research on this. We know that this works. We know about the meridian points in the body. But at the same time, some of it is spiritual and it's explorative. But I do think, I try to hold myself accountable when I'm sharing on my platform. I'm coming with science. I'm not telling people, because even though
Bam. So how can this girl, let me tell you, the girl at the end of the brown who reads a lot is smarter than half of these people. I mean, y'all are just trying to agree, but it's very dangerous. You have to be careful with just saying, yeah, I don't think they need this, especially being a healthcare professional. Like, come on now. Like the lady in the brown and then the lady at the end who's a dermatologist, they are coming with receipts. I believe they're coming with knowledge. They're coming with wisdom. I don't know about the lady in the brown, what type of believer thing. So I'm not saying spiritual wisdom from God, but at least she has a lot of knowledge.
we're talking about herbs or diet, you can still mess yourself up. Like it took me 3 years to recover from being vegan, and that was not appropriate for my body.
Yes, let's talk about it. Talk about it. Veganism is something wrong with that. There's something wrong with being vegan. Ain't nobody be talking about that. That's not healthy. There was this whole movement of being vegan. My body is still trying to recover from that too. I can't eat chicken wings without sweating bullets. Okay, so I'm sorry. There is something wrong with being vegan. Yes, girl. See, what she's on the holistic side. What about listen, y'all ain't coming. Y'all ain't coming like you should on the medical side. I'm telling you right now, they're not coming like they should.
It's horrible.
Hair fell out, nails rigid, like a lot of issues.
It was a total fact.
All kind of stuff going on. Yeah. So I needed to understand what was going on. So I think both are important.
Yeah, I think our first responsibility as providers and physicians and people talking from a place of authority is to do no harm. And so, even if there's not the same, I love data, right? Because I think it's important. We need ways to validate and share experiences and share why we are recommending something. And so I think there needs to be a level of accountability because we need to keep people safe, right? So even if there's not the same level of data that there is with a lot of the larger scientific studies, share what data is available and share the level of data that's available so that everyone is kind of approaching it from the same playing field and they can make an informed decision.
Bam. And I'm sorry, the pharmacist, y'all, you're not doing a pharmacist job in this panel because we should be the main one saying we should be the gatekeeper. So girl, I don't know what she talking about. It's okay and all this. No, it's not. This dermatologist is coming with more receipts than the pharmacist. I'm just saying. We need to do better because you don't just say, oh, I don't think they need the science. You need data. Like she said, you need to have some type of standard to tell someone that it's okay to do this. You don't just say, it's okay, girl, bye. No, you don't do that. That's dangerous.
I think that's really important.
Great point.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we should be held to the same standards because of the symptoms that are addressed and the ultimate end all of whatever that is. So fighting cancer can be eradicated by way of Western medicine as well as holistic practices. I've helped with addictions. God has had stage.
Not true all the time, but there is Turkey Tail. Turkey Tail does have some pretty okay data. And I think there's, starts with a C. I can't think of it right now. When I think of it, I'll say it.
For cancer and worked with me and put the Coca-Cola bottle down, which was a big thing. Okay, that was the start. And then also cigarette addiction. So that's a neurological thing as well. It's a brain thing, obviously, when you're addicted to the cigarettes, but also the addiction itself can be treated holistically. There's different herbs that you can, if you're someone who has to smoke, there's herbs that you can smoke. I think it's the blue butterfly pea flower or something
protein.
like that. Yeah, to smoke. Like it's different things you can smoke to get rid of that, to curb that addiction. So I feel like they should be held to the same standard as far as being rigid and all the structure, maybe there's a difference there, but I can get rid of a fibroid just as well as someone in the Western. I've done it. I've shrunk 4 millimeters fibroids before,
Yeah, but what's the data on it? You're saying you've done it. How many patients in comparison to natural medicine, how much has holistic done with fibroids, for example, shrinking fibroids? There's no comparison, ladies. So I think we need to just be careful because you're doing anecdotal, just I've done this, but compared to who? Who are you comparing this to? And what research and data have you done to assess the comparison?
I've helped get rid of prostate cancer in a gentleman by treating it holistically. So, and again, data is super important. Like for example, the Black mortality death rate in Western, Black women delivering babies in the hospital are dying at a higher, faster rate than any other race culturally. So and there's a way to combat that. We can have our babies at home. We can have them in birthing facilities. We can, begin to understand that birthing is not a medical procedure. This is natural. This is innate to us as women. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, as far as the standard, I think it is the same. I just think it depends on which lens you are looking at it from.
Yeah. And we do have the School of Naturopathic Medicine. And I think to that point of like the social idea of medical authority is shaped by the fact that we've had all this money and establishment and like the bigger picture, the broader studies, whenever you Google Mayo Clinic or whatever, that is what's readily available. That is what people are used to. Like you said, people want the pill. They don't want the 6-month life change plan. So it's a collaboration socially, I feel like, but we do have the research behind holistic medicine for sure.
Yeah. The medical field has...
You don't have that much research. Just saying. Not compared to regular medicine, Western medicine.
Come too commercialized to truly care about patients.
That can be true to a certain extent. I think the industry itself, but I wouldn't even say the medical field, because the medical field is not commercial. You mean the pharmaceutical field? Maybe that's more appropriate.
First disagreement.
There's no money in wellness. It's simple. There's money. The people have jobs because people are sick. And we have to keep our jobs, so we have to keep people sick, whether we like it or not. Whether it's something that we want to do, we can feel how we feel emotionally, spiritually, all these things. But the reality is we're preying upon people. We're counting on them being sick in order to, if people aren't sick, there's no need for a pharmacist. If people aren't sick, there's no need for a nurse. You know what I'm saying? There's no need for certain positions and things if people are not sick. So yeah, this is the medicine. Yeah, the medicine is going to keep you going. That's how, I don't know. That's just how I feel.
So I'm on the fence because I actually came from 20 years of Western medical. So I kind of know both sides here. And see, I've worked in big corporate companies where everything is very controlled. There's only one way. You don't have a choice. Yeah. I mean, I've worked for some pretty bad companies, UT Baylor. I don't know if you could put that on there. But it's very much controlled. You can't ask questions. It's only this way. And then, I know a lot of independent doctors in Western that are just amazing, and that are open to different ideas and conversations. And then you have controlled medicine. So, there's two different sides of the spectrum there. That's how I feel. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I had wondered if it was because of the patents. So if I think you can't patent a natural herb, but you can patent a combination or right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I've thought is that's why it's more focused on Western, because that is where the money is. But I think that's just how it's built. I'm not looking at you guys and going, you don't want us to be healthy. Obviously, you guys have different beliefs, but I think the way that society is structured, whoever designed it, I know you had mentioned some names earlier, but I think as a whole, our society, even against women, has designed it against the health, so that there can be money made. But I think one of the main things is because of those patents. At least that's what I've thought. Yeah. So
what is she talking about? Patents. So there's patents for drugs. Like I said, I think it would be a more important prompt, a more accurate prompt, the pharmaceutical industry. Because that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. It's become too commercialized to truly care about patients. It's all about money. Absolutely true. I mean, I can't deny that. But the medical field, we have doctors. People become doctors because they actually truly care. I don't know any doctor, unless they crazy, going to go through all their years of schooling and to absolutely hate caring about patients. Majority of doctors, 80+% probably care about their patients. It's not commercialized at all. There's no commercials about doctors' offices as much as there are about drugs. So when she means patent, I think she's talking about drugs, pharmaceutical industry, rather than the medical field. It's just not accurately prompted, probably.
So I think there's the systematic conversation and then the individuals. Like there are some doctors, like you guys have been absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I would come see you personally. But then I've also heard doctors be like, well, I'll prescribe however much money I want to make today type of thing. And then I've also heard the systematic, I think it's so big at this point and such a machine and such a monster that systematically people are getting thrown into a system that is not custom to the individual. And it makes sense. Like it's hard to deep dive on each individual patient. Like even with my own stuff, it took me 3 years to figure it out. And I'm just me. I'm only working on me and I'm researching daily. So I think that the system is a bottom line system, but I think there are some incredible doctors within that system doing the best that they can for good reasons.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think needs to be done. Like, you're in a huge system. Like you said, there's so many layers, there's so much history, but what do you believe from what you've been taught? Like, if you could speak to that, what do you believe needs to be done so that
That's not the prompt. They did not answer the medically field prompt. So why is she? I'm telling you, y'all on the medical side was too nice. Y'all was too nice because I would have been like, let me answer the prompt first, and then I'll go to this. Sorry. That's why I wasn't on here. I would have been tearing everything up. People were like, okay, get this lady off the stage.
what she's saying can be, there can be some fusion, there could be better utilization. Yeah, a bridge, yes. A bridge, yeah.
Throw it away and start all over.
Yeah.
Burn it down.
What you said, I feel like it hit it on the head, that there's like an individual thing and then there's this big thing. I think a lot of it is just America, right? Because it's not just medicine, like the food they give us. That's not medical. Just the industry sucks. Like if we fix that part, I think that'd be great, And we won't need a lot of these things. But as far as my background, so I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a doctor of nursing practice. Nursing, we're built differently as nurse practitioners. We are built differently than MDs. So we don't go into it thinking about a bottom line.
Love nurse practitioners, FYI. They're absolutely the best, one of the best, better than PAs from my humble opinion.
Our assessment, our background, being very thorough in assessing and seeing the big picture for our patients is just how we're taught. So like this picture you guys have about the history and stuff doesn't click with me because it's not how we were educated. We're not educated that way. So go see a nurse practitioner. Anyways, so we're not educated that way. So it's really hard to, I know the history. I know how big pharma is and all that other stuff, but it's not about a bottom line. We really are, especially like the jobs I've worked, our metrics are based off how many people we can keep out of the hospital. It's not about making...
So I'm so glad she's bringing this up because I think there's just this stigma, this perception of just Western everything is bad. And now they're seeing it from another Black woman, another perspective, and they're like, oh, it's because you're biased and your references and resources are biased. So it's so good that they're actually seeing this and that she mentioned that.
Money. It's about how can we stop polypharmacy in these patients 55 and over? That's people on 5 or more medications. That's the stuff that we do. And I'm working with nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and doctors. So there are practices like that. So I want you guys to have hope that all of America isn't like that. But our system is really built in a way that there's just so many components that lead us down this path of sick health. Like it's not healthcare, like you said before. It's sick care. Yeah.
Sick care. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think
to you guys' point, we live in a capitalist country.
Yes.
So, everything is built on capitalism, everything that we're doing. And so I am a medical doctor, so I approach it from the standpoint of presenting everything that I know and allowing the patients to decide what best suits them. I have some patients who decide I want to do things that are more natural. And I'm okay if it has a little less data, but that's what I feel most comfortable with. I have some patients that are like, I'm going to be presenting next month, or I'm getting married in 2 weeks, right? I can't have my face like this, right? So they're not about to get on a 6-month plan, right? So I think there are just so many different nuances and circumstances. And like you said, we as providers learn everything that we can learn, and we present that to all of our patients, and all of our patients are so different, and they have the right and the responsibility to choose with that information.
When you guys have a patient, well, I guess the question is more for you. When you have your patients, whenever they're telling you that something is going on, are you actively always retaining all these possibilities and all your education, or do you have to go home at the end of the night or at your desk and really zone in on what's going on with them and do a deep dive? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, For some people, most people, in my specialty at least, my specialty is dermatology, so it's very visual.
Yeah.
So, I can see, I'm looking already, it's right there in front of my face. Some things we do need to do a deeper dive on because that mind-body connection, it's definitely influencing it. There are sometimes, there are some things where we have to put a little bit more in-depth research into, or kind of give it a little bit more time, or see how someone is responding, right? So most of the time, I may put someone on a year-long plan, right? And then we're making adjustments throughout the year with each check-in, right? So it really depends, and I think there's so many things that are going into it. I may have some people who are doing great for 2 months, and then they hit a really stressful month, or they got sick, and so now we need to start over, or we need to make some changes. And so I think that's the part that I enjoy the most, is applying all of the treatments and all of the knowledge, but also really being a part of each individual's journey.
Love that.
Man, where's her practice? Shout out to this dermatologist. She's amazing. She seems like a really good dermatologist. And actually, all of them seem like really good healthcare professionals. I'll be honest. They really do. Even the pharmacist, I think she seems young, but she seems like a good pharmacist.
I would just say, I think that's probably why we all said no, because within individual practices, you're able to take that individualized approach as opposed to having to focus so much on the system and, what is already outlined, because everybody is different. Every single human is different. You can have twins, you can have family members.
But you do have an outline, girl. You do have a guideline. So there are guidelines, and I'm surprised she's not mentioning this, that we use to cater to, like, okay, this patient has this SCVD score, and this is what we're going to put them on because of that. We're going to put them on this statin. So that is, it's not commercialized, but it is like a guide on how we do the patient. So we're not digging in spiritually to that or anything. We're just treating the patient. So I feel like I wish there was more like talk about those type of things.
But at the end of the day, what works for one person doesn't work for another. And that's where we get to kind of flex all of that knowledge and all those years of schooling, and kind of get to, just make individualized plans and kind of push back against the system too. Because I know for me, when I was in clinic, we weren't paid directly for pharmacy services. I would spend, we would have a 15-minute block that we could get, in some ways I would take like credit for, but I was spending 30 minutes to an hour with people sometimes. So that's all time that's not being accounted for. So you just have to kind of, we on the front lines, I think, are doing our best to kind of fight that system.
Absolutely. There are big predators in the holistic field.
Big time.
And they don't even do research. You're like, oh, you're sick. Take this fast, it's going to be $1,000, you know what I'm saying? And you got to think they're coming from like a hustle side, because they're not getting constant every 2-week paychecks, you know what I'm saying? So some of them, I've seen it. When I was early on my journey, there was a woman who got me like that, and I won't say her name. But
if you
you know,
watching it.
yeah,
right.
if you watch
Coming for you, girl.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I was like, dang, you know, you preyed on my vulnerability and, you know, got money out of me, time, energy, devotion, all these things. So yeah, like that can absolutely happen. And I love that you guys I just love this.
I
love
know, me
how
too.
yeah, how you have I know there's within certain limits, like I'm sure you guys can't do like certain things outside of what the structure is, but at least you're willing to like, all right, let me try something else, because yeah, there are predators and sometimes we do need I always say, don't just come to me, like go back to your doctor, get a second, third, get a couple opinions, you know what I'm saying? Get your doctor's diagnoses and, you know, bring it to me and let me give you, and then go to someone else. Like couple everybody's words and thoughts and processes with somebody else's. Pit them against each other, like low key, so you can see who's talking because they want you well or who's talking because, you know, like I had a C-section with my first daughter at 16 and I had a VBAC, all natural, no rips, nothing with my son. And the doctor was like, oh, I've had 100,000 C-sections and once a C-section, always a C-section. And it's like, well, girl, how much are you getting paid for cutting me open? Why are you so advocate? Because I could do it. And once I've done it, like I tell every woman that's had a C-section, nah, like there's things you can do. There's things I did that, and now if there's an emergency, like I have a doula and midwives, and, you know, that are trained, I guess I'll say medically as well. I think, I don't know much about the midwifery, but I think they are trained beyond like a doula or just your sister birthing your baby, you know? So they can, if something happens, red flag it, get you to where you can get some other care. But yeah, predators are everywhere.
I wish we could normalize taking control of your own health, like being involved in your own health. I think we've all been conditioned that just go to the doctor, they know best, do what they say. And it has to be a collaboration. And I think people feel a lot of disempowerment in the conversations. Like I've had a couple of doctors that are like, yeah, pull out your own files, like show me what you did. Like, okay, I didn't know about that. And then some doctors are like, close your laptop. Like I know, like.
But those doctors, you have a choice of to go to or not. Because I've always even told my mom, like, hey, if the doctor's not giving you options and choices, and if they're not breaking it down to a point that you understand, a way that you understand, then you need to find another doctor. Because there are plenty of other doctors out there that are doing it the right way. So you don't have to, just because the doctor says to do something and you're second guessing it or whatever, you don't have to go by whatever the doctor says.
I'm the expert, you know? So I think like people, and it takes a lot of work. We have a million things to do. People got kids, work, whatever. But if you take the time to get involved with your own health, you don't have to do all the passing around and be uncertain or be taken advantage of either.
My thing is, if you see somebody like selling anything on social media, a huge one is the parasite, the heavy metal detox. Everyone's marketing. If somebody's marketing a product, I would not trust them as a holistic provider. 100%, because like these heavy metal detox and parasite cleanses, I mean, those parasites are going somewhere in heavy metals, usually in the liver, because most people have liver, you know, blockages and bile issues. So yeah, anybody who's marketing a product and making profit on it in holistic, I would not trust off the bat without actually talking to them, be like, okay, this is what I think is the best thing for you, just marketing one product.
I always
That is
say,
what I stay clear from.
yeah, I always say desperation is dangerous.
Yeah, false marketing.
And if you feel desperate, for any woman, if you feel desperate, you have to check in with yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because desperation makes you go and look at those marketing and, oh, okay, they have the answer. They can help me, you know, have my baby or get rid of my fibroids or get, you know. But I think desperation is the one that brings the most profit, because these businesses are bringing hope, and you need hope. In desperation, you're looking, you're begging and clawing for hope.
And that's why you need Jesus. Okay, I'm going to finish this up. But yeah.
So I think for myself, I've had, because I get desperate. So some days I'm like, I need answers, you know, and you're digging and you're doing all your research and you're getting opinions. And so whenever I feel desperate, I have to go and check with myself. I have to pray. I have to do research. I have to look into myself and go, you know, what actually matters? You know, am I actually grateful today? Do I have everything I need right now? And that allows me to calm down and have a healthy view, so I can make a faith-filled decision. You know, so
Faith-filled, clock it.
Yeah, I just think we all agree on patient-centered care, like doing what's best for each individual patient, giving them informed consent. Like you said, we're presenting all the options, what you feel most comfortable with. And we really just want to help people, honestly. And I'm just really glad to hear that we all agree on that.
I think a big takeaway for me was just you have to learn your body, because if you're going to someone for help, they can provide you with any sort of information, but you have to know if that can or can't work for you based off of research you've done for your own self. And then going in and being able to advocate for yourself if a doctor's telling you that's not working, or that this is the best thing for you, and you're like, well, no, that's not working for me, being able to stand firm in that. And I know that can be scary for patients, but that's something that I really want more people to know and understand. You can fire your doctor. You can go get a new doctor and get somebody that's actually going to be there for you and provide that culturally competent care.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's so important, is just not just saying yes. And you see it all the time. And honestly, it's like some doctors, I'm like, I would not go to this doctor. And yes, I work with the doctor, but I wouldn't trust them with a ham. And so that is very important. And then like the crazy thing is, these are the doctors that are so known or so great and people love them and they have literature. Those are the doctors, I think it's because they have that information and that knowledge and things that the patients are not going to question them. And I feel like that's even more dangerous, is these higher known doctors, these thought leaders that are, they may not be the best doctors just because they're thought leaders.
Yeah, I'll just say that I think conversations like this are important. It's important to know what's out there and what everyone is doing, because then it helps us be of better service. And so I'm glad we're able to have this conversation.
I know it's really hard for systems to change, but I think because we're having these conversations because of social media, because awareness around the need for the bridge between holistic and Western needs to come together. I hope one day we get to see it in our lifetimes.
Yeah, me too. I was going to say, I'm just really proud to be here with all of you. And I'm really proud to see more women in the industry like all of you, and that you have much more of a well-rounded view. But to be able to have this conversation and to bridge that and to see where we actually relate and where we value, it makes me very hopeful for the future. Yeah, and I agree. I hope we see it in our lifetime, there's that bridge.
Yes, and thank you for changing my mind, because I came from Western Medical, from big corporate companies, and I had a bad outtake from bad experiences with doctors and big CEOs of corporate saying, telling us it's only this way. If you don't like it, we're going to fire you and slander your name. So knowing that there's Western medical professionals out there like you that are just patient-centered care is just, it's refreshing and nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I vote for you guys to train the future.
Exactly.
You tell them all.
Right.
And if you guys need some, I'll come advocate.
Right.
Well, we have to support them because they're doing it. I appreciate the conversation. It's very, I just knew there was going to be somebody here that was Western gang. And I'm like, yeah,
I think that would have been cool to have somebody that was like really hurt. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, beautiful lady, beautiful.
Yeah. Well done.
But I will say, I think that's how we can see the evolution in healthcare and medicine is just the fact that we are all here saying like, no, we kind of agree with y'all too.
For sure.
So that is all we're going to talk about. I would have actually loved all of these ladies, interestingly enough. I would have loved all these ladies on here. So, all right, I think we're good. I pray that y'all have a blessed day, and hopefully you learned a little bit of something about Western medicine and holistic medicine and all of that.